Welcome everyone. Now that another year in the NFL season has passed, it is time to do my predictions for every NFL team, where I think they fall into this tier list. I've done this for a few years now. If you don't know how it works, I judge these teams based off how they did last year, based off their offseason, and based on kind of how I feel they fall into this tier list. At the top, we have Super Bowl contender. These are the teams that will no doubt be a high seed in the playoffs, ready to make a run at the Super Bowl. Below that, playoff teams that I believe will make the playoffs, but are not necessarily the top teams in the NFL. After that, we have on the bubble, teams that I believe are close to making the playoffs, or are around that 7 to 9 win range. Then we have mid. These teams, you need them in the NFL. They're the average teams that have stability but are still not top tier or even that good. And then finally, first overall pick. These are the dumpster fires, the worst teams, but I think you guys understand. Let's go with the first team, the Arizona Cardinals. I think they're an on-the-bubble team. I don't know about Marvin Harrison Jr. I want him to do well, but, and thinking of the fact that they passed on Malik Nabers, Ladd McConkey, Brian Thomas, and no doubt Marvin was the clear-cut number one guy heading into the draft. But still, the fact that multiple guys from the draft class have outperformed your rookie so far kind of hurts. But besides one player, you have Kyler, who in my opinion is at least a top 20, probably a top 15 quarterback in the league. I don't think that's crazy to say. Your defense has improved with guys like Josh Sweat on the D-line. In my opinion, solid draft. But the Cardinals are just one of those teams that always, is kind of in the middle of the NFL standings. So I think on the bubble was good for them. The Cowboys are a bit interesting. They could go in a few different ways. I'm going to put them on the bubble. I don't know how well Dak Prescott will play. He was hurt for most of last year. And even when he was on the field, he was good, but not like how he was a few years ago when he led his team to 12 wins and a playoff spot, or when the Cowboys were the 2 seed and lost in the first round to Green Bay. I don't think Dak Prescott is at that level right now. I'm not saying he can't be this season. I do like the George Pickens trade. I thought the Cowboys had a very solid draft. But I think they are on the fringe of being a playoff team. The Green Bay Packers. Now, last year, you could argue was a bit disappointing. Jordan Love got banged up. The team was solid, but not what you expected after, 2 years ago, almost beating them 49ers in San Francisco as the 1 seed. As the 7 seed after they beat the 2 seed Cowboys. I'm going to put them on the bubble. I know we're starting off with a lot of on the bubble teams, but with only 5 categories and none of these teams being like true playoff teams in my opinion, I think it fits all 3 of them. Carolina Panthers. Now, I'm actually pretty high on the Panthers and Bryce Young. I'm still going to put them in mid. I do feel like they are a tier below the Cardinals, Cowboys, and Packers. And where they are in the tiers, by the way, is not ranked. So this doesn't mean I have the Cardinals above the Packers or the Cowboys behind the Cardinals. It just is what tier they are in. I might fix that up at the end of the video. We'll see. Anyway, I do feel like the Panthers have another year before they really start contending for a playoff spot. But I liked what I saw from Bryce Young at the end of last year. It was encouraging if you're a Panthers fan. And I think mid is fine for them. Commanders are a Super Bowl contender. I see people saying they're going to fall like the Texans did, and they're just not going to be as good. I did take the bait on the Texans too last year. I had them as a Super Bowl contender. I had them, I think, representing the AFC in the Super Bowl. It was either them or the Chiefs. I know that was my AFC title game, was Texans-Chiefs. But I'm drinking the Kool-Aid again. I thought the Commanders had a very solid offseason. Not the greatest of all time. but still good enough for sure. You get guys like Deebo Samuel, pretty decent draft. Free agency, besides getting Deebo in the trade, was solid too. You retained a lot of your guys from last year that helped you get to an NFC Championship game. It's hard for the Commanders to win their division with having the Eagles, even a team like the Cowboys. Maybe the Giants go in and give the Commanders a loss somehow. It's a tough division, but I still think once they get into the playoffs, they are a Super Bowl contender. The Chargers are going to be a playoff team. There's nothing wrong that they did in the offseason, in my opinion. They clearly did not think J.K. Dobbins was good enough because they drafted Amarian Hampton in the first round, and they picked up Najee Harris in free agency. So it's clear to me that Jim Harbaugh wants to run the ball. Now that you have Amarian Hampton, you have Najee Harris, and if you want to still bring back J.K. Dobbins, I think he's still available as of recording this. He might get picked up by another team, but if you want to bring him back for cheap, why not? Just have a three-headed monster in the backfield. Justin Herbert is not going to get the passing stats like he used to, but if that means winning football for the Chargers, I think that's a good sacrifice. I see this as like a 10-win, 11-win team that might end up in the same fate as last year, getting blown out in the first round of a wild card. I just don't know if Herbert has it in the playoffs. He hasn't shown it so far. First choking that game against the Jaguars, and then getting blown out by the Texans. But this is based off where I think they'll fall in the regular season, and the Chargers are a good regular season team. The Seattle Seahawks is a very interesting one, because I feel like if they're playing at their best, they could be up here. If they're at their worst, they could be down here, maybe even down here. If Sam Darnold plays like he did on the Jets or the Panthers, Cooper Kupp is washed, the defense is not good. I'm going to put them on the bubble, though. I don't think that's the case. I feel like Kevin O'Connell helped Sam Darnold not only in the short term to save his career, but in the long term, giving him good advice, giving him, the right mindset he needed after coming from teams like the Jets and the Panthers, who were dumpster fires. So I think overall Sam Darnold will be decent. He's not going to be as good as he was last year, which is not a bad thing. He was an MVP candidate last year, so it's pretty hard to replicate that unless you're like a Josh Allen or a Lamar Jackson. Sam Darnold is not. I still think he'll play decent. I think Cooper Kupp will be a good addition for this team. But part of me feels like they regret trading DK Metcalf for a guy that is, 6 years older than DK? I don't know. I think they're an on-the-bubble team. They could go 12-5, could be 5-12. I got them at about 9-8. And one other thing, I do really like the Jalen Milroe draft at pick 92. I think that could be big for them. The Buffalo Bills, we don't really have to talk about it. They're just one of those teams that are going to contend every year. There's those teams that never really get over the hump, but are just a contender every year. The Bills is one of them. And another team that comes up in a few spots is also one of them. The Minnesota Vikings, they got better in the offseason. You do get rid of your 26-year-old star quarterback, Sam Darnold. But I think it's going to be worth it. I like J.J. McCarthy a lot. Hometown Illinois, also from Illinois. So I'm rooting for JJ, although I'm a Bears fan. And I think this Vikings team can seriously get 11-12 wins, get close to what they did last year. Don't be surprised if JJ struggles at the start, because you got to keep in mind, it's a rookie playing his first games, because he was hurt all of last year. And so don't be surprised if, especially in the second half, the Minnesota Vikings are a dominant force. I kind of agree with the J.J. McCarthy to Jalen Hurts comparison. A guy that is able to make throws when he needs to, but is not his main thing. He's more of like a game manager that has some scrambling ability, rather than being, a Josh Allen who's going to throw 40 times a game, or a Caleb Williams arm talent. It's not either of them. But I think J.J. McCarthy will be very solid with Kevin O'Connell. Jaguars, you got new coach. You got Travis Hunter with the trade from the Browns. I think that's a win-win trade. Browns get a lot of draft capital, which they need. Jaguars get their guy of the future in Travis Hunter, who will probably play wide receiver. I think he should do cornerback instead of wide receiver. But it's going to be interesting to see him at wide receiver. Anyway, besides Travis Hunter, pretty quiet offseason. Didn't do too much. I know they released, who was it? Christian Kirk or Gabe Davis. They released one of their guys and the Texans signed him. I'm going to put them in mid. I feel like we're kind of blinded by the fact that a few years ago they started the season 8-3 and looked like the Super Bowl contender that we thought they'd be. Then they fell apart, ended 9-8. The disaster known as 2024-2025 Jacksonville Jaguars happened, and now we're in this timeline where the Jags have Travis Hunter. So I'm going to put them in mid, but I feel like in the next few years, they will be good. It mainly depends on Trevor Lawrence, And that's kind of what it's always been. Will T-Law finally have his breakout year? We'll find out. Baltimore Ravens, what I said about the Bills can exactly be applied to the Ravens. You have a top 5 quarterback, elite level defense, championship level coaching, some great offensive weapons, and a strong offensive line. And that is how you build a Super Bowl contender. You do those 4 things or 5 things, whatever I listed. Find a great quarterback through the draft. Get the right offensive line. Get good weapons. Get a championship level defense. Some good coaching. And boom, you're a Super Bowl contender. And so the Ravens, obviously, Super Bowl contender. Steelers, I'm going to put them on the bubble. I see a lot of people predicting them 8-9. Their first time not being over 500. I'm also going to speed up my, takes as this video goes on because I don't want this to be too long. But anyway, I think the Steelers do go 9-8 just because it's Mike Tomlin. How do they not? They get doubted every year. They got doubted heading into last year, the year before that, and they always find a way to do it. So I got the Steelers at 9-8 on the bubble with the playoffs. Broncos, no doubt in my mind, are a playoff team. The Broncos are one of those teams that could either be 7-10 and be disappointed but not too angry by them, or realistically go like 12-5 and are a Super Bowl contender. I'm not going to put them Super Bowl contender yet, but in my opinion, you have a championship level defense, you have your franchise quarterback, and you have a solid offensive line. The weapons kind of concern me. Only Cortland Sutton I can think of right now. I know they have like Vele too. But if the Broncos get more weapons for Bo Nix as time goes on, I think they're no doubt a Super Bowl contender. And one other concern about Bo Nix is that he might have already kind of reached his peak. It doesn't mean he's going to get worse. It just means that, coming out of the draft, he was already 26 years old. So it's like, how much more improved is he going to be? I think there still is some room to grow for Bo. But that is a concern that I thought I'd point out. Texans are a playoff team. I think the Texans are going to shock some people this year. I'm not going to fully drink the Kool-Aid on them like I did last year and put them as like a Super Bowl team. But they could really stun some people. They still have an elite level defense. I really like DeMeco Ryans as a coach. CJ Stroud had a good sophomore year. Obviously nowhere near as good as his rookie year. But his rookie year was so good that you kind of think his sophomore year was bad when it really wasn't. Not to mention the injuries on the team kind of killed them. But don't worry, because they will be back. And they might make an AFC Championship game. I'm not going to say that now, but they might make an AFC Championship game. Colts are going to be the first team that goes in first overall pick. I'm cheering for Anthony Richardson. He's one of the most talented quarterback prospects I've ever seen. The freak athlete with a freak arm. It's just him throwing the ball or Daniel Jones throwing the ball. I like Tyler Warren. I like Michael Pittman, but not a great weaponry there. Defense is questionable. Coaching, I like Shane Steichen. Still questionable as of now. I think they are one of the worst teams in the league. And maybe they get Arch Manning. You never know. Or maybe the kid from Clemson, Clay Klubick. Unless AR blows up. Anyway, Chiefs are going to go in Super Bowl contender. I mean, they could be one of the worst teams in the league talent-wise, and the refs will still get them to the Super Bowl. But on a real note, like, people are hating on the Chiefs, saying they have, like, the 5th best chance to win the Super Bowl. Guys, they've been to the Super Bowl for the last 3 years. Won 2 of them. Why are we hating on them so much right now? Give them their respect. Chiefs, Super Bowl contender. Send it to the bank. Miami Dolphins are one of those mid teams. They always start off strong, and the speed and quickness thing of Mike McDaniel, it catches up to them every year because they get, overrun. They get hurt. You just look at guys like Tua. Devon Achane has had injuries. You don't have Raheem Mostert, who is reliable. But I have liked the Dolphins offseason, especially the draft. Free agency, losing Terron Armstead to retirement was a tough one to swallow. But overall, it wasn't a horrible free agency for Miami. Keep in mind, they are going to lose Jalen Ramsey in some capacity. He's not going to be playing for them anymore. It's just a matter of where he will go. So I think like 7, 8 wins. I don't think they're an on-the-bubble team. I think they're a little bit below that. But I think there are some serious changes that need to be made in Miami. Patriots are on the bubble. It's one team every year that just like people think, oh, they're going to be one of the bottom teams in the league. Last year, it was the Broncos and the Commanders. Both teams people thought would be some of the worst, and they now look like Super Bowl contenders. And the year before that, the Texans emerged when they were one of the worst teams in the league. One team does it every year. I think the Patriots are going to be that team this year, but I'm not going to put them in the playoffs just yet. I feel like they need some more talent on their roster, but I'm a fan of Drake May. Mike Vrabel, great head coach. He's a fiery guy that is going to help lead his team, put stability in the organization that has been missing since Bill Belichick left. The defense, you added a lot of guys. Milton Williams from the Eagles, one of the highest paid free agents in the offseason. I think the highest paid. But I really do like the Patriots offseason, and I think they can get realistically 8 to 9 wins and make a push. Falcons, again, are going to be on the bubble. I think they would win the division if not for one team that's coming up in a little bit. But I like Michael Penix. I like the offensive weapons. Defense, you added 2 pass rushers in the draft. Questionable trade to trade up for James Pierce, give up a first-round pick. I didn't fully get that, but I understand addressing a positional need. But the Falcons are kind of boom or bust this year. If they kind of fail, then there's going to be some serious changes made in Atlanta. Don't be surprised if Raheem Morris gets fired, if Michael Penix is even looked at as a franchise guy. There could be some serious questions in Atlanta if they bust, but I also feel like there's a good chance that they can really have a great year. And so I'm going to put them on the bubble. Saints, we don't have to talk about it. First overall pick. They are the worst team in the NFL. I don't think it's too close. Maybe the Colts are with them. But I'm trying to think. Like, there really isn't a ton of bad NFL teams anymore. The Saints are one of them. You lost Derek Carr. The quarterback room does not intrigue me one bit. The defense is getting older. Chris Olave is always injured. It's just all negative right now in New Orleans. And I think what they need to do is get a new general manager. Rams, one of my more wild takes in the video. Super Bowl contender. They went all in this offseason. They got Devontae Adams. Him, Puka Nacua, Tyler Higbee, Kyren Williams, all of them with Matthew Stafford. Tell me that's not a Super Bowl contender without telling me that's not a Super Bowl contender. I just don't know how a team with that many weapons can't contend. Not to mention, the defense is right there too. They are an above-average defensive unit in the NFL. probably a top 10 unit too. And we can't forget that they narrowly beat the Eagles in Philadelphia when they're a team that plays in Los Angeles. It was snowing that game by the end, and Matt Stafford almost led them back. It was a one-possession game. That was by far the Eagles' closest game in the playoffs. And I think the Rams are right there as a Super Bowl contender in the wide-open NFC. Giants, I'm not going to put them in first overall pick. I think they're just going to go mid. I do like the Giants' offense a lot. It's mainly the offense and the defensive line. You know, I have big questions about their secondary, second and third levels. But I think Malik Neighbors with Russell Wilson will be good enough to pick up a few wins here and there. I think Jackson Dart has some really good talent. I compare him to a guy like Bo Nix, a guy that can come in right away and play good football. And so I got the Giants in mid, not first overall pick. Raiders will go mid. I think playoffs for the Raiders is absurd. They're not there yet. They need more pieces on both offense and defense. But you get a guy like Pete Carroll. You get the running back Ashton Jeanty. You trade for Geno Smith. I like their offseason. I think Ashton Jeanty especially can come in and make a big difference in his rookie year. Get at least, 1,300 rushing yards and another 500-600 from the receiving game. You can't be mad at that if you're a Raiders fan. And so I got them at like the 6 to 7 win range. The Jets, I'm going to go mid for the Jets. I don't think they're bad. I'm a big Justin Fields guy, being a Bears fan, and so I root for Fields every chance I can. I think the Jets can be good, but I don't know if they're able to really compete in a star-studded AFC. The 49ers, I'm going to put them on the bubble. 49ers are one of those teams that I don't really know about. They could be 12-5, back to Super Bowl form. They could completely fail this year, and we have so many questions about them. You don't even know where to start. I got them in the middle of that. Some serious questions will be brought up after the season, but at the same time, they're not in the most disarray they ever had. I'm not the biggest fan of the Brock Purdy contract. I don't know if Christian McCaffrey will be at full health. There's just too many questions for me to put them in a top 2 tier. Bucks are for sure a playoff team. I want to put them in Super Bowl contender because I love Baker Mayfield, love Mike Evans. They've kept the core together for the same 3 years, which you usually don't see in the NFL. Like the same group for years on years. But it feels like the Bucks are doing exactly that. I'm not the biggest fan of their first round pick, but you signed a guy like Tez Johnson, speedster from Oregon, and you signed Desmond Watson. I think that's how you say it, Desmond Watson, yeah. The Tush Push Terminator is his nickname. So, Tampa Bay, watch out for Tampa. Cincinnati's going to be a playoff team. Besides the Bears, the Bengals are my favorite NFL team. Love Joe Burrow, love Jamar Chase. I think just them and T. Higgins alone will get them 7 wins, 9 wins. And if Trey Hendrickson can sign, then I think they'll be a Super Bowl contender. But the defense has always been the biggest question. I wasn't the biggest fan of the Shamar Stewart draft pick. In my opinion, you needed a guy that can go in and play right away. And I don't know if Shamar Stewart is the most NFL-ready prospect out of the draft. I don't think he is. I don't think that's a crazy thing to say. But I'm fine with the Bengals, like 11-6, and back in the playoffs. Detroit, we don't really have to talk about it again. Another Super Bowl contender. I know there's more Super Bowl contenders up here than most years, but I feel like it's a pretty open year for the NFL. That is what I like about the NFL and NBA, is that each year there's a good amount of teams that can realistically win a championship or compete for a high seed in the playoffs. And I think Detroit is another one of those teams that can do it. Now, my Chicago Bears, I'm not going to glaze and put them in Super Bowl. I'm not going to be a depressed fan, put them in first pick. I think they're on the bubble. I think they can get 9-10 wins. I'd hope they get 10 wins, but I feel like 8-9 or 9-8 is more realistic. I really like the Ben Johnson hiring. I think that was the best thing we did all offseason. Getting interior linemen like Jonah Jackson, Joe Thuney, and Drew Dahlman were big too. Getting Grady Jarrett and Dayo Odengbo on the D-line is going to help our D-line and pass rush a lot. And our draft was pretty good too. We got Luther Burden. We got Colston Loveland. Picked up that corner late. And we got a running back, I think, from Rutgers, Kyle Monengai. We had a good draft, in my opinion. A offensive-heavy draft, but a good draft nonetheless. I think 9 wins is good. Tennessee Titans. I think they're back in first overall pick. And Cameron Ward, it's not like he's in the worst situation ever. You know, he has some guys to throw to, like Calvin Ridley. Tyler Boyd is still on the team. Tajay Spears, Tony Pollard, Chigakonkwo. Like, it's not the worst thing we've ever seen for a number 1 pick, but it's not ideal. I just feel like there's a lot of moving pieces in Tennessee right now, and they need a few years to fully, get ready for the Cam Ward era. At least 1 year. Because Cameron Ward, he's a prospect that we haven't really seen before. His, I guess, nonchalant style of play. That might be wrong, but I feel like he plays very calmly, almost too calmly for the NFL. You always need to be on your tippy toes and ready to avoid a sack. And so I wouldn't be surprised if there were a lot of sacks in the first year of Cam Ward's career, but I think he's got the talent to be a really, really good quarterback. But I still think they're one of the worst teams in the NFL. Cleveland Browns, I'm going to skip the Eagles. Browns will go in first overall pick. Now, between the 5 quarterbacks they have on the roster, 4, if you don't include Deshaun Watson, I think if I were the coach, I would start Joe Flacco, try and pick up wins early in the season, and if you know that it's cooked by like week 8, week 9, then I'd put one of the rookies in. I don't think I'd put Kenny Pickett in. There's not really much to see there. Dylan Gabriel, if you want to try out the lefty. Shedeur Sanders, if you want to get clicks and get ticket sales. It just depends on how you feel. And finally, Philadelphia Eagles, top of Super Bowl contender. I think I'm going to reorder these. But I don't have to explain the Eagles. Best team in the league, won the Super Bowl last year. They are the favorites to win it. So I think if I had to rearrange these, I'd go Eagles, then Chiefs, then Lions, then Bills, then Ravens, then Commanders, then Rams. I'm in the middle between the Ravens and the Bills, and I thought about moving the Commanders up too, but I think this is the accurate first row. In the second row, I think it goes Vikings, then maybe Bucks, then Texans, then Broncos, then Bengals, then Chargers. I'm high on the Broncos. I like the Bengals. I'm not high on the Chargers, but I'm giving them their respect. So they're going to be at the bottom of playoff tier. On the bubble, I think I would go Seahawks, 49ers, Bears, then Packers. Packers there, then the Steelers, then the Cowboys. And I think I'd switch I would do this. I think that looks pretty good. For mid, I would go, I like the Panthers at the top of mid, then the Dolphins, then the Raiders, then the Jags, then the Jets, and then the Giants. That's pretty good. And then for first overall pick, I think the best team out of these is probably the Colts, and then the Browns, and I think the Saints are the worst overall pick. So this is the official ranking for the 2025-2026 NFL season. If you enjoyed, make sure to comment, drop a like, subscribe. I'm planning on doing more of these videos, maybe like off-season grades, predicting every game on a schedule for a team that you guys comment down below. But anyway, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.